on this edition of the Self-Publishing Show.
Now that we look at how we did things, and now that we're trying to do things from a marketing way, we're just like, you look back on yourself and you learn from your mistakes, don't you?
Publishing is changing. No more gatekeepers, no more barriers, no one standing between you and your readers. Do you want to make a living from your writing? Join indie bestseller Mark Dawson and first-time author James Blatch as they shine a light on the secrets of self-publishing success. This is the Self-Publishing Show. There's never been a better time to be a writer.
Hello and welcome to the Self-Publishing Show. Yes, with me, James Blatch.
And me, Mark Dawson.
Here we are. Now, we are casting our mind back, Mark, to a night that you and I spent with Jamie Lee Curtis earlier in the summer, aren't we, for this episode?
Oh, God. That sounds terrible. Well, apparently she was there. I didn't see her. We were in a hotel. This gets worse. We were in a hotel in London, the Corinthia, which is a very nice hotel. We had a drink with... I was there with Louise Ross, and Mel Sherratt was there, and Joseph Alexander, all of whom have been on the podcast. And you were there as well. And someone after we'd left and gone to an award show, which we'll talk about in a moment, said, "Do you know Jamie Lee Curtis was sitting behind you?" And I didn't know at all. I didn't see her at any point. Which goes to show, when I'm talking to someone, they get my full attention.
Yeah. Well, you're not very observant, one of the two.
Or that, yes, possibly, or drunk. Could be any one of the three.
I did see her. She was sitting where we were originally sitting, because we got moved. And we got very politely...
Outrageous.
We were very politely told when we said, actually, we're quite happy here. And he goes, no, I think I'd like you to move.
And then they didn't serve us for 3/4 of an hour.
Yeah.
But apart from that, not know who I am.
Yeah, apart from that, it was a nice hotel. They did upgrade your room to an enormous suite.
Yes, without blagging too much, we were upgraded. We checked in and they said, "Sorry, Mr. Dawson, the room you booked, we've sold them all out. But the good news is we've upgraded you to our suite." And I looked online afterwards, and no kidding, this suite starts at £8,000 a night. So it was the most expensive hotel room I've ever been in. And it was very nice. And we were only in there for a very short time.
Jamie Lee Curtis is in your old twin.
She was, yeah. Up yours, Jamie Lee.
Yeah.
Who's laughing now?
Yeah, exactly. Well, probably her and her millions, and her Christopher Guest's millions as well.
Yes.
Anyway, she was there, and she was sitting just by the door when we walked out, so it was fun to see her. But the reason I mentioned that was not the main point of the evening. It was the Amazon Storyteller Awards night, and I took the opportunity to go down and talk to Louise Ross, which is the podcast episode we've broadcast. And you went along, and I think Louise was one of the judges of that. Yeah. And you went along to the ceremony, and today's episode of the Self-Publishing Show is an interview with the winner. But before we do that, let's just remind you that if you'd like to support the Self-Publishing Show, you can go to patreon.com/self-publishing show. And that's a great thing to do because it gets you into the book lab, and we always get great feedback on the book lab episodes such as last week's, and a great thing for anybody to have that amount of expertise thrown at them. And we should also say that we are gradually moving over to selfpublishingshow.com as our new URL. So at the moment they redirect to our existing site, so they are the ones to use. Okay, so Hanna Lynne, did you get a chance to speak to Hannah very much in the evening, Mark?
I did, and well, not actually on the evening. One of the prizes that she got from being the Storyteller winner, apart from I think £20,000 or £25,000, so a pretty decent prize, she got to be mentored by some indie authors of her choosing, and she actually chose me and Louise Ross. So I went to London about a month after the awards and spent a couple of hours with her and her husband talking about marketing and promotion and advertising, all that kind of stuff. Louise then had the afternoon with her, and we went out for lunch together. So I've spent several hours with them since Hannah won, and she's lovely, a really good writer, and you can tell that they work together, a husband and wife team, with regards to the promotion and the marketing and the writing, all that kind of stuff. So it was very interesting to talk to her and to wish her well, and I think she's going to do quite well in the next few years.
She is. Okay, so the top prize for the winner was a day with you, and second prize was 2 days with you. That's old.
Is this a family-friendly podcast, or can I tell you to bleep?
It's Christmas time. Mistletoe and wine. Yeah, well, it's after Christmas. It's between Christmas and New Year. It's still Christmas time. Okay, look, let's hear from Hannah Lynne, then Mark and I will have a quick chat off the back.
This is the Self-Publishing Show. There's never been a better time to be a writer.
Hannah Lynn, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much.
You're very up against the wall in this, which that's okay. It's just as long as you. That's why I asked you just before we came on air. Are you comfortable?
I am comfortable. Like I said, I chose my daughter. We're at the grandparents, but I chose my daughter's bedroom because it was just a little bit softer. And like I said, I was worried about echoiness. So I thought sitting on her bed surrounded by endless soft toys seemed like a good idea.
Sounds like a perfect place to be. So you're more than comfortable, frankly.
I'm more than comfortable. Yeah, I've got badges and all sorts to keep me company.
Well, the first thing we should say to you is congratulations, because you are the winner of the Amazon Storyteller Awards, which is fantastic. Well done.
Thank you very much. Yes, it's very exciting.
Yeah, just tell us how that came about.
It came about as a rather large surprise. We released my new novel, or a previous novel, The Afterlife of Walter Augustus, in the summer, and when we uploaded it, there was the option of entering it into the Storyteller Award, and I didn't think too much of it because I didn't think I had much chance. My husband, however, thought, yes, we'll go for that. And then I received an email in September just telling me that I had been selected as a finalist. So that was a big surprise to that stage. And then actually winning it was a complete and utter surprise even further.
So you went along on the night, and I couldn't make the ceremony. Funny enough, I was there beforehand to do some recording with Louise Ross, and we had a few drinks in the company of Jamie Lee Curtis, actually, who happened to be in our hotel bar. Then they all went off to the awards ceremony. So I missed the opportunity to meet you that night. But I know that you spent a bit of time with Mark on that night, and then subsequently with a bit of mentoring, I guess, on the marketing side from Mark.
Wow, yes, because to be honest, as a self-publisher, I do a lot with my husband, but we are finding our way. We are, trying to work things out as we go. So to have Mark there one-to-one, is every self-publisher's dream.
It's useful, isn't it?
Very fortunate. Yes. Yeah.
Okay, well, let's talk about your book ground. Your book ground. That's my new word for the background about your books.
I like it.
Yes, let's go with that. So your book ground. So Afterlife of Walter Augustus was the award-winning book. Amendments, I think, is your latest book.
It was my first. That was my debut.
Amendments
novel.
is your first,
yes.
Is it?
Yes.
Okay. And then you've also had Peas, Carrots and Aston Martin, and Peas, Carrots and Red Feather Boa, which are great titles. Thank
you. Those are the latest ones.
Are these all standalone? Obviously, Peas, Carrots is a series, a mini series of 2. Is that right?
It will be more. It will be more. So there are more in the works on the Peas and Carrots. Amendments is the first of a series. It was the first book I wrote, and it's a difficult concept. It's sort of got a time travel but not time travel element to it, and it's one of these. It's what I like to think of sort of a passion project. It gets there over time. It takes a long time to get there.
It's a brilliant concept, and we should tell people what the concept is. So the concept of amendments is, in your life, as long as you've registered, I think on your 21st birthday, you have an opportunity to amend up to 2 aspects of your life but you just get this one chance to amend those 2, which you can take at any point after your 21st birthday.
Yes. So you can send an envelope to your former self at any point with a short message in, like, don't get on the bus, or go and meet Jeffrey somewhere. But you don't know when you sent the envelope. So you don't know if something happened the day before and you sent it straight back to yourself, or if you lived with whatever the consequence was for decades and decades until you reached your 80s and went, actually, do you know what? No, that's the one thing I'd change. So you have no idea. And I think it's an interesting concept because it's one of those where I think a lot of us would think, oh, we'll wait and see how life pans out. But actually faced with it, how easy would that be to live with something when you knew you had the option to change it? And then, of course, just because you amend something, that doesn't stop somebody else making a different amendment, which will therefore contradict yours. And it ends up in a web of not necessarily knowing where to go.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the classic intriguing elements that you need for a novel, and I've already been turning that over in my mind about, you can wait. Obviously, it would be a disaster if you made your amendments and then got hit by a bus and had a catastrophic injury for the rest of your life. I think, well, actually, that would be, I've used my amendments now, so I can't do that. On the other hand, that's unlikely to happen. And is there any point in amending things when you're 80, where you haven't got your life to live, where you can make a positive change in your 20s? But that's why this is such a fantastic. So when this is just one of those things where you're jogging or walking along one day and just starting to think, what if?
Yeah, I was living in Kuala Lumpur actually when I had the idea. I had just moved there, and we were in an apartment with a lovely view, a really lovely view. No furniture, no curtains, but a lovely view. And I just remember thinking, what decisions in my life have I got that have taken me here? And is there anything that I could have changed that would have not led here, or would I have still ended up here anyway? And that was the okay. So this is a book.
So fate is something that this plays with the idea of whether fate exists or not. Whether however many times you change things in the past, you always end up at the same place anyway.
Yes, and I think what's so sort of intriguing about it, or interesting about it, is I think everybody has that. What would be your two amendments? You could ask anybody what would be there, and there's nobody who wouldn't think over that question, even if the answer, I'm sure is well, I'm happy where I am. I wouldn't change anything. You've still got those. Maybe if I'd just done this or just tried that. It can appeal to anyone in that sense.
Now, when did you write amendments?
So I published amendments in 2015, just a couple of months after my daughter was born, which was chaos.
Yes.
But
I can
thought,
imagine.
I've got to do it now. So I had a newborn and trying to get all of that sorted. But it had been a few years in the work before then. And
so the genesis of the idea came standing in a furnitureless flat, staring out at a nice view in Kuala Lumpur. Where did the book writing motivation come from? Is this something long held by you, or something you just decided to do?
Yes, lots of amendments. Is the first novel I have put out there. It is not the first novel I have tried to write or have written, in the same way that Walter is my second one out there. On my computer are countless drafts, first draft, second draft, get to third and still don't feel it's quite right. And so I've always been interested in writing. I've always been writing, but amendments is the first time that it all just came together, and at the end product I was like, actually I can carry on working with this. I can keep improving and keep editing, whereas a few times I've got to the end and gone, not sure I made that quite right.
But were you writing, so before you got to the point of being happy with amendments to publish it, were you writing with a view to publishing, or were you writing as a hobby, half thinking these will never see the light of day?
Dreaming about them seeing the light of day. But whether or not they would, I think, was, it's one of those, yes, I'd love to do that, but can I, and am I good enough, and those kind of things, sort of.
Before amendments, did any of your novels get to editor phase?
No.
Okay.
No. Before amendments, they got to the second draft stage, and then they could just be pulled apart too easily. I have a wonderfully critical husband who will pull everything apart to the nth degree, which at the time does not make for a happy marriage. But I think when it comes to actually the quality of books that's then presented is important.
Yeah. But amendments did go to edit before you published.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. And then you published it. So your first novel, self-published. Did you go to agents? Did you write any query letters or?
I didn't, because at the time I was living in Asia, and we didn't know if I could write as well. You know, there's one of those, you know, in my head, these ideas are great and innovative, and my writing's, you know, not too horrific. But you never know if that's just you. Although I will remember forever the first time I handed this amendments to my husband, and he was sat in bed, and I handed him like a paper copy, and he just read it and went, "It's not actually bad."
Praise indeed.
Thank you, darling. Thank you. So because of where we were living in the situation, and we, you know, read up about self-publishing, we're like, well, that seems like a really good idea. Let's see how it's received, and if people understand where I'm coming from, and also like the writing style, and then take it from there. So that's what we did.
It's first person, I think.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, all the way through. Okay. And so you got a great cover actually, and you uploaded it. I don't know if that's the original cover, is it? On
it's
Amazon
not the
today?
original cover. No, the one on there isn't. It was actually just a case of the quality of the image with the original cover, in going to the print format as well is why we changed it. Yes. So hopefully it's reflective of the theme.
And did you market it initially? What happened?
Very little marketing. Like I said, I had just got my daughter, or just had my daughter. So we did a few tweets, put it out on these promotional sites. Again, just with the idea of seeing, you know, whether or not people were receptive to it and to my writing. I mean, we now that we look at how we did things, and now that we're trying to do things from a marketing way, we're just like, oh, you look back on yourself and you learn from your mistakes, don't you? I think
if only you had an envelope you could send to yourself to.
Exactly. Yeah. If I had an envelope, there's a good chance that marketing tips would be in it.
Most people, you know, most of the very, very successful, financially successful and other successful authors we speak to have the same couple of sentences where they say, well, I uploaded it and strangely nothing happened, and I don't know why. Now I laugh at myself. But everyone starts like that, and that's a great thing about self-publishing. It's a journey of discovery.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
So anyway, but did it sell at all at the beginning?
Yeah, I mean, not big numbers, small, you know, my father-in-law buys a lot. And we did, you know, free downloads and free promotions, and they were really successful. But I said at the time, we weren't looking at writing necessarily full time, and it was kind of a hobby and a wouldn't it be lovely if, you know, and also the genre of amendments. I think now new adult is referred to quite a lot, but when we published that 3-4 years ago, it wasn't. It was it's in an awkward, you know, 21-year-old protagonist in there, and it was a case of I want to write this story. If people want to read that story and people enjoy that story, that's great. But it was written for me as this is the story I want to tell. And, you know, I didn't have a market in mind. I wasn't thinking about how it would be marketed and how marketable it would be. I was just like, I want to write this story. And I think you can tell that in sort of how the genre doesn't necessarily fit cleanly into a genre, or how the protagonist doesn't. But in that kind of weakness, I also think there comes strength in the stories, because, like Walter, it's the story I wanted to write. Therefore, my passion within it comes through, I hope. Yeah,
no, absolutely. And it's a great start for a book. And Yeah, it's funny enough, in the editor I'm working with now, it's her first and most important question to me is, why do you need to tell this story? And it was not, what genre do you think this is going to be most successful in? She wanted to know where it came from, why I was writing it, and that's when she made her judgment of whether it was going to be a good book or not, is what my motivation is for writing it. So that's exactly, why it's probably a good book. Although that's not to say, I meet people all the time who have clinically chosen a genre to write in for commercial reasons and are going great guns and enjoying doing that. So that's, there's no, you have to write what you know is not true. You can do it all sorts of ways. But anyway, okay, so that's great. So Amendments, which is intriguing, and all that writing all that drafting you did was for a purpose, because as people say, the more you write, the more you find your voice. And that first book, the great failing of most, not a failing, but one of the catch-22s, to quote a famous book, of the first novel, is you don't have the word count behind you to be, at ease in your own writing. Was you'd actually got yourself probably there just through these multiple drafts, which is great.
I don't know if I was there, like completely happy with it, and still there are times when, because I like to change genres, because I got stories that I want to tell, I'm not sure about it, but I trash an awful lot. I get to 60, 70,000 and just go, no, actually, it's gone. And I think that's one of the most useful things I can do for myself, is be able to acknowledge when my writing's working and what I like the sound of, as opposed to when I'm just trying to write. So, yeah.
Okay. And so you then started looking into the marketing side a bit more seriously with Amendments. Did Amendments become a sort of profitable book for you?
No.
What?
No.
What a shame. It's such a great book. Well, even to this day.
Even to this day.
Okay.
And that's not to say that it couldn't be in the future. Like, I think one of its strengths is that it is not time. It is not of a particular. What's the word I've forgotten? Here's the writing element.
Contemporaneous? I don't know.
Yeah, it's, you pick it up in 4 years' time, it's not going to matter. It's, it's not specific to a decade
timeless.
or an era. Yeah, it's, so hopefully, in the future, there may be some profit in the book there. It would be nice, because I am proud of it. But, yeah.
Do you feel then that The Afterlife of Walter Augustus is a much better quality book compared to Amendments? You, as a writer, you've shown your improvement in that.
I feel I get more confident in each book I'm writing, and I said my husband and my father-in-law recently read through the peas, carrots, and a red feather boa, and we're just like, this feels like we've got it, like you're happy and you've got your voice and you're just writing away with it, which obviously is a lovely thing to hear. Walter was interesting in that it only took me 17 days to write the first draft of Walter, because I knew what I wanted to write so much. It then took 2 years to redraft it to a stage where I was happy with it. And I don't think it's perfect. There are things I look back on and go, oh, maybe that could be tightened up, and this, that, and the other. But I also wonder if there would ever be a stage where I would look at it and go, it's perfect.
No. Well, there's a quote that I come up with quite often on this program, which I think is Francis Ford Coppola, saying that any creative project is never completed; it's just abandoned at some point.
Yeah,
so, I think he said that about filmmaking, but I think it works. Okay, but Walter has a bestseller tag, right? So Walter has been doing well.
Walter's been doing okay. It's plodding along. I mean, we are still very little leagues. I am a little league self-publisher, and winning this award has been great. And also, I hope great for other people to see that I am not a big selling author, But that doesn't mean I can't write good books. Maybe I will get there, maybe I won't. But the fact of how many I'm published or how many I'm selling doesn't necessarily reflect that, that it's not too bad. It's not too shabby a job.
So, peas, carrots, and I should say.
Yes.
Tell us about this series.
So this series, I had an idea about an allotment. We've finally got an allotment this year, which is the first time. Although it would have been great if I'd had it whilst I was writing the book as opposed to afterwards. And it's something I've always wanted. But I know from my family growing veg and from all that about the amount of hard work that goes into it. And I was just had an idea while I was waiting for a lift. Actually, waiting for a lift to work one day, and was thinking about an allotment and about what if someone had to do an allotment and was made to work an allotment, and why would they be made to work in an allotment? And by the time I'd got to work on my phone, I'd got like a brief outline of where I was going to go with it, and it was different because everything else I'd written had a slightly, not necessarily supernatural, but otherworldly or element to it. And this was I just quite want to write a nice story about a man who inherits an allotment. And I went with that.
And this is going to be a series. Yes. I know less about these books. So you have to fill me in. Is it the same character through each, or is the allotment?
Character. So what happens is Eric Sibley is not given the inheritance he expects from his father, and the only thing he does inherit of any monetary value is the beloved Aston Martin, and that comes with the condition that he has to tend to his father's allotment every week for 2 years. And only when he's managed to have those 2 years does the car officially become his. But Eric is already up to his eyes in work and all that comes with that, and trying to juggle family life. So he goes through a series of escapades in trying to avoid actually tending to the allotment to start with, and then hopefully reaching a point where it's not too much of a chore.
Okay. And what's your audience for this? When have you planned this one more commercially?
It's definitely more commercial, and I think sort of the older, I say older, and that's me involved, but sort of your mid-30s and upwards. The age where you're excited about. Old. I know, excited about getting your allotments and how many tomatoes you get off your plants. It's suited to that age and upwards, and I think there's definitely more commercial elements to that than in amendments. Not necessarily Walter, but obviously Walter is a bit of a tricky one to classify. Yeah.
But then some very successful. You think about that. Some of the big traditionally published books that are very successful are standalones, aren't they? So there's no reason why it can't be. But it is for genre fiction. It is, as we know from Mark's teachings, more of a haul, more of a slog to make it commercially viable. But okay, so you're on your way now in terms of building up a back catalogue, which regardless of it not necessarily being one series, it's linked by you as an author, and so hopefully, as Walter's picked up, have you noticed sales going back to amendments?
There have been a couple going back to amendments, and because we had no idea that I would be nominated, be finalist for the competition, or win it, we'd actually put P's release date on the day after Walter, and then had some sort of giveaways and things on there. So there's definitely people who like P's. I think have there's a good link between the feeling of Peas and the feeling of Walter. And then the concept of Walter and the concept of amendment. So there is that, you can tell it's me going through, I think is the...
Yeah. And do you get to use the award for marketing purposes?
In what sense? What do we...
Do you get a badge that goes on the front of your book that says Amazon Storyteller?
I've not got a badge. I would like a badge. I may possibly ask if there is any form of badge I can use. We have got it on the front that it says winner of, but it is something we need to look at.
I think you should get a badge with a ribbon, and you could wear it out. You could
just all the time
in the evenings. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I got this lovely little gold, but I think that was the most exciting thing, was seeing my name printed on this little gold plaque, because I'm like, it isn't a mistake. They actually did, they didn't just read out the wrong name. It's here in black and gold.
Gone to the effort of engraving. It must be real.
Yeah, it must be real. So that was brilliant.
Great. Okay, so in terms of marketing now, Hannah, what are you up to? What are you doing?
So we are trying to get ready for a sort of Christmas push. Obviously, the series that Peas is a series, so we know that, like I say, from Mark's teaching, that series in itself hopefully has got more sort of marketability and will help feed into the others. Things like classifying the genre of Walter was something I learnt from the others. Where it is now, I don't think it's particularly marketable. I need to look at how to put it to make it more appealing, because it is a mainstream fiction book. Yeah, it is very much your book club book, but it doesn't fit into the typical book club book of a genre or a romance or a thriller. So we're trying to find ways to categorize it that are more appeal to the market. That came out very garbled, but I hope you get what I was saying there.
Well, it's terribly important getting the categories right and placing it. So and I can imagine it's more of a challenge when you're not writing a straightforward billionaire romance, sweet romance, or military thriller, for instance. So you've got to have to do some thinking. I mean, one way, of course, is to look at some of the bigger, the most successful books in a similar genre and see how they're marketed, what categories they go for. So
I think one of the great bits of advice actually that Louise Ross was giving me, and it's completely bizarre. There was a moment where, because I met Mark and Louise, and I'm sat at a table just thinking, this is a little bit surreal. And my husband was there, so I poked him, and I was just like, just look at that end of the table, just look at it, and then we're down here. Was the feel of the book, because in its, you mentioned the bestseller tag, but the bestseller tag that it's in is quite a specified and unique category. And I think as self-published authors, we're quite like, we need that orange tag, that orange tag that's a bestseller. Actually, placing it somewhere where more people will consider it is sometimes more important than getting that tag. And that was something we hadn't really considered, because we knew it was staying, bestseller of its category. And we didn't realise that actually its category might be quite off-putting to some people, even though it fits in there. So finding books which have a similar feel, which is quite, it's the uplit, it's that popular, which is popular at the minute. Those kind of overwhelmingly, you leave feeling a bit surer and a bit happier about life. Walter is dead, yes, but that's just a sort of underlying thing in the book, rather than making the Walter is dead as the everything. Does that make sense? Yeah, it does. That completely makes sense. And there's a quirkiness to that as well, which goes back through a rich vein of famous authors who've always come at things from a slightly quirky angle, and it still can be uplifting. So what do the mechanics of your marketing look like? If Facebook ads, AMS ads, you've got a mailing list? Yes. So this is where I go. I am part of a team, and if I'm in all honesty, the main part of my marketing looks like a bearded man, which is my husband, who helps me out on all of these. So this is where I go, don't get it wrong. But we are working on exactly what you said. So it's mailing lists that we didn't have before. And we are putting a lot of time into building up our mailing lists, into finding Facebook ads that work for us. And also, having the click through, because this is how we looked at the genre not fitting, because it looked like we were getting responses from people clicking on our ads, but then not going and purchasing Walter. So that is where the others have been invaluable in going, okay, maybe we need to look at how our copy, how our blurb are written out, how we're classifying it. But the Facebook and the mailing list are where we're looking at, and also building up that mailing list for future projects now. I have already got a solid year's and the rest plan for my writing. I have a problem with ideas, not that I struggle from them, that I can't stop with ideas, and looking at, okay, which of these ideas are viable from a marketing perspective. So which of them do we want to start building up mailing lists for now before they're released next year? And which of them are perhaps going to be more standalone, in which case it'll be linking to Walter in that sense. And yeah, looking far more at the future. I think that's a big mistake. That not a mistake, because we didn't know how it was going to take off and what we were going to do. But, at the time you put out your book and then you go, what do I do now? And in hindsight, what it should have been is, my book is coming out then. What am I doing in preparation for it? Okay.
Yes. Well, that is the correct way to do it. But
yes, that is the correct way. But when we put it out, we just, with amendments, we didn't know that. And yeah, we didn't know. We were just like, oh, we can do that. So.
And you have your challenge to go back to your way of writing and your books. One of the challenges of the mailing list is that genre thing, because Mark's mailing list is people who love thrillers, and there'll be another thriller writer's mailing list, and that's the link. And of course, you're trying to say to your person, I know you love this book. I've written a completely different book, but I think you'll love it as well. And but people do read. I think you've been compared to Ishiguro Kazuro, if I can say his name correctly, who's a fantastic author and has never written two books the same that I can think of. And people love, like, I will read every one of his books that comes out. So it is doable, right?
Yeah, well, that's what I think, and that's what I'm like as a reader. That's the thing is, I love Ishiguro, so I go to the library, I'm like, oh, there are those ones in, and I'll take them off, and I don't care which way I'm going with them. And it's the same, with Murakami and with Margaret Atwood and with Neil Gaiman. I like their books, and the authors I tend to like are these ones that flick genre. So it's not really a surprise that's how I write as well. Yeah. But yeah, it is more difficult. There is no denying that, when you're looking at these and it's pickle, if you like this author, you'll like that. Well, how many can you pick that have this kind of humorous dead, and a middle-aged shoe saleswoman, the way that I've also started writing, that I do write my books, is I try to have very normal characters, just very average people, relatable people. And so it's just trying to match those up. It's a puzzle, essentially, and one that we're learning from. It would be lovely if there were a couple of big authors, if you're a fan of, you would love, Walter. Hopefully we will get there.
Yeah. Well, you are getting there. There's no question about that. And it's exciting to watch your journey. So just before we go, a little bit about your writing process. So you've given us a glimpse into the mind of Hanna Lynne, which is an ideas machine. And you then go from idea, I guess, to bashing out. Do you outline? Do you draft first? Or how does that work?
So it's, again, one of these things that we had a long discussion in our car on a long journey yesterday on how essentially I do need to change or adapt, I think would be a better word, how I plan. Because at the minute, I have a bit of an outline. I kind of know where I want to go. I always know how I want to end. And I work towards that end. And however I get to that end is great. But feasibly, what that means is lots of drafts. Each draft working out another kink. Amendments, we were on, 8 or 9 drafts before it went to an edit, and these are a full redrafts. With Walter, for the first 3 drafts, Letty was a 21-year-old working in a bar with a waste of space husband, and by the final one, she's a middle-aged shoe saleswoman with a secret Mars bar habit. And all of those changes took drafts and time. So I am working on my plotting skills, and on let's get it down, because of course I'm working very full-time, long hours at the minute. The other thing I have is that I grab where I can, and I love writing. So whereas plotting this or looking at this marketing thing or looking at this mailing list might be the right thing for me to do, I really love writing. So if I've got a spare half an hour, I try and write. And again, I've got to change that.
I sort of feel that the practical side of you wants to streamline the process and think, well, if I find a more detailed way of plotting, then that's going to cut out all these drafts. But on the other hand, if time wasn't a factor, if the commercial wasn't a factor, redrafting is without question going to be the best way of writing the best book, right? Because everything's improving in that process, the character development and all the stuff in the weeds, as the Americans say. When you can't get to that point in plotting. You can think about it and there's going to be stuff there. It's only when you're writing when characters start surprising you with the directions they take, etc. And so, but so it's nothing's been wasted. I don't think a word you've been writing has been wasted at the moment. But I can also feel your reality kicking in a little bit in terms of making this a commercial thing. It'd be great for you to quit your job. What is your job, by the way?
I'm a physics teacher.
Okay, teacher. I mean, teachers, that's an intensive life during term time. At least you don't have a lot of time. When do you write? In
the morning. I work at a boarding school, so it's long days, sort of 7 till 6, 7 till 9. So 5:30 in the morning is my get up and write time.
Wow.
Yeah. And it's not so easy to do when it's cold and dark and wintry. Like in the summer, that's fine, It's downstairs and lovely. Winter is a bit more of a challenge. But I don't have a choice. If I want to write, then that is the only time available to me. So I'll keep with it.
And just remind me what's next. Is it another peas, carrots next? Or
So, we've got another peas. And Peas 3 as well is well on its way. I would tell you what the name is, but just not 100% sure yet. Definitely starts Peas, Carrots and.
Yes.
I know that much.
An ampersand, yes.
After that, I am actually going a little bit back to amendments and doing something slightly more YA and supernatural. And I have to say, I'm really excited about this not just from a writing point of view, and I'm always excited about what I'm writing, or I wouldn't be writing it, I suppose. That's like most people. So we've got that one, which will hopefully be 3 out next year, is the aim. And then any other projects which I can write in secret without my husband knowing about, because I should be marketing the other ones. I do sometimes come back to my computer and see just red capital letters written in "Stop writing new books" at the bottom of my documents.
Wow. He's a hard taskmaster.
He is. It's highly unfair. Although, without him, I would just be tapping away at whatever I please.
He's obviously got in his mind some point in the future where you're sitting on a beautiful desert island living off the royalties from your books, and he's quit his job.
actually, he is already. We swapped jobs a few years ago, so he is at home with my daughter more. Yeah, maybe it's that.
Yeah, well, it works as well.
Yeah, she is quite a handful. No, it's a teamwork thing. I think writing takes a lot of your time. Well, it takes any time you can possibly offer it, and particularly, like I said, we didn't know about the marketing things and all that before we went into it. But trying to do it yourself is massive. It's huge. There's so much out there. So having another person to support you in whatever way they can is just so important, for me at least.
Well, Hannah, it's been a real pleasure. I'm sorry I missed you at the glamorous awards ceremony to see your name engraved on a plaque. But I can only congratulate you again. And, I spoke to a couple of the judges earlier in the evening who didn't reveal who the winner was, but they were incredibly impressed and found it a difficult decision. So you were in very good company of very good writers. So all those doubts you had before, and they're completely natural, and we all have them, is this rubbish? Which is what I frequently think about when I'm writing. Is this actually all rubbish? It might be rubbish. Well, you've got a firm answer to that now, so I hope you can believe it and move on. It sound like a little psychiatry session. I hope you can believe that and use it and go great guns, because it'd be fantastic to see you sailing in the future.
Thank you. It would be very nice, hopefully, and hopefully it will work out well.
Superb. Hannah, thank you very much for joining us, and we'll check in with you in the future and see how it's all going.
Yes, I would love to come back and hopefully tell you things that we have got that have worked, and see me a little bit later on in the journey where I know a bit more about what I'm doing marketing-wise would be nice.
And meanwhile, I'm going to think a bit more about what 2 things I would go back and change.
Yeah.
Because that's intriguing. That's a film,
That would be lovely. That would be very nice. Definitely.
It's a film. If I was a film producer, I think that if you're listening and you're a film producer, that is a film. Okay, great. Thanks, Hannah. We'll speak to you again. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
This is the Self-Publishing Show. There's never been a better time to be a writer.
There she is. So I think a very typical story of somebody who's trying to make their way as an author, juggling life and everything that life throws at you, and getting that writing. And she's been very disciplined, very dedicated to what she's done. She's a husband and wife team, which is not unusual also in the indie space. And one thing I also wanted to say is what a great thing that Amazon have done here, and I like the fact that this is about storytelling. It's not necessarily about marketing, because ultimately we all love stories and books, and that should be the focus when we come to celebrate and recognize achievement, I think.
Yeah, and it's also something that Amazon takes seriously. So at the actual awards show, the first person to talk was Doug Gurr, who is the head of Amazon UK, not just Kindle. He is the head of Amazon.co.uk, the whole store in this country. And I had a chat with him afterwards as well. But then apart from him, Darren Hardy, who runs the KDP over here, was there, obviously, and also some senior Amazonians who also work on the Kindle platform were there too. So it was well attended. And one of the other nominees was a guy called Andy Maslin, who is an alumnus of the course, also lives in Salisbury. So I know Andy quite well, and I thought he had a chance. But then when I read the kind of the synopses for the books, it was pretty obvious to me that Hannah was going to win. It's a really interesting premise for a story, and I wasn't surprised when her name was called out first by Lorraine Kelly. So there you go. Talk about celebrity for those in the States who... How do you describe Lorraine Kelly? I'm not quite sure. What does she actually do?
Daytime host.
Daytime
TV presenter.
Loose Women, isn't I think she's on.
Yes.
I'm not saying she's a loose woman.
Well, that's what they call themselves.
But she is a loose woman, yes, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, good. Well, it was a delight to speak to Hannah. It wasn't the best quality of line, but we got the interview, got through that. And that's it, I think, for the Self-Publishing Show for this week. It finally leaves us...
this year.
For this year, yeah, with our new show. And we're coming into a new year. So we want to wish everyone a happy 2019. We've just been having a quick chat about doing a kind of sum up of the last year and a look forward, more importantly, to what's coming up in the future in the indie world. And Mark, you're about to step on another luxurious apartment on a plane and go to Bali for 20 books Bali. So I think we'll record that when you come back from Bali, full of ideas and enthusiasm.
Yes, so that's the plan. We'll see how that goes. I'm looking forward to that. We're only there for three or 4 days, I think, but I'm speaking at that event on the first day, and lots of very successful indies are going to be there. So hopefully get some good ideas on the way back from there.
Great. Okay. Well, that'll be in a couple of weeks' time. We do have a couple of useful episodes coming up on time management and journaling for authors, and on dictation, which is a subject we get asked a lot about. And we've actually had, there goes another like for your author page if you're watching on YouTube or you're listening and wondering what that clapping was. The dictation one's coming up in a couple of weeks, and that's going to be a good one. We do get asked about dictation quite a lot. I know a lot of people want to get into it, so it's a good episode coming up there. Right. That's it. Have a great New Year's Eve, a great New Year's Day, and have a brilliant 2019. We will see you next year. Bye-bye.
Happy New Year.
Get show notes, the podcast archive, and free resources to boost your writing career at selfpublishingshow.com. Join our thriving Facebook group at selfpublishingshow.com/Facebook. Support the show at patreon.com/selfpublishingshow. And join us next week for more help and inspiration so that you can make your mark as a successful indie author. Publishing is changing, so get your words into the world and join the revolution with the Self-Publishing Show.